Welcome to the Healing Collective podcast, where we explore the paradox of healing.
And we broadcast all of the healing codes to support a world of more heart-centered humans.
You look amazing.
I literally just put on lipstick. That's it. Like,
your hair looks great though, but let me see. Oh, I can't see on
you can't
tattoo.
see it. It's like literally all my fingers, my hand, like the
OMG. Is it the same guy?
I'll send you a picture because I took a picture before he wrapped it. Let me see if I can send it now so you can see.
Is it your same guy?
Mm-hmm.
He just
fucking channel.
I've emailed him to try to get a spot when I'm in Chicago.
He
doesn't respond.
Mm-mm.
No. What about can you help me? Can I?
I don't know. He was mad at me today because I paid ahead and he didn't realize it. So I already had paid him like $600 and he thought he was going to get paid that day.
Oh. Whoa.
So that's the arm and then the hand.
Oh my God. Girl.
And I was
he drew this up?
Yeah, but it's like an initiation. Like the downloads I'm getting are like, I've completed initiation. That's why it was like 2 parts, because I was like starting the final, and it's like a warrior tattoo. And the meanings that have come, it's like light warrior. That's a protector of the earth because the light comes in the top. And then it's like an arrow and like the transmutation. And then it comes out of my hand. And then I have the elements like fire, earth, wind, water. And then on my thumb, I have a symbol that means as above, so below.
Astrology.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's so cool. I have such a strong draw for more markings, as I call it. And our podcast editor just got a new tattoo yesterday. Mr. Ethan Luck got a new neck tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
Hand and neck tattoos. We're not playing around on this team.
It's very close to like our year anniversary. We actually, I think, passed it.
Yeah, it's right. It's like,
or no, we're not there yet. I think it's March 18th. So in a week.
It was right around there. Yeah. But we announced it today. Up. Yeah. I had a post pop up that we were telling people it was coming.
And here we are.
I know.
They're really good mics that we didn't have before.
I hope everyone can hear us now, because we finally just enlisted some professional support around getting our sound at a much higher level. So I know personally,
this is us affirming that we are official. We're committed. We're committed, and we have some shit to say. So we need really big mics about it. Mm-hmm.
So Lauryn actually coached me last night. We still call each other for coaching. And the coaching was about me and my like professional life currently, which is arguably too full. Maybe the dial's turned up a little bit too high. And
she has like 10 jobs and is working from like 7 a.m. to like 9 p.m.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a
so
lot.
Maybe just a little.
Maybe just a little. Mm-hmm. And we got in touch with, Lauryn was masterful, and we got in touch with this dichotomy that's happening inside of me where part of my body and like my brain are like, keep going. And then a different, like mostly my body, like on all the lower part of my body is like, stop, rest. And I think it's been integrating a little bit more just since last night.
Mm. What are you noticing today?
Well, I taught, so I work for Conscious Leadership Group, and we teach people these different commitments of conscious leadership. And one of them is clear agreements and integrity, energetic integrity. And there's this whole concept of whole body yes. And today Jim Fallon and Stephanie and I taught that commitment. And Jim did like a 10-minute sort of meditation on whole body yes and finding yeses and nos. And I real time opened up my calendar, and I was like becoming aware of some stuff that isn't a total whole body yes for me, that like I kind of want to do it, or like my head really wants to do it, or sometimes my heart really wants to do it, but mostly it was my body that was like no. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I noticed was, or one of the one of the ways that I'm starting to realize, which I know this year is about for me, like how my body communicates, like what the intelligence of my body is my ability to picture things in the future. Usually it's like very, like if there's something that I either know is going to happen or really want to happen, I get these like vibrant, like I can feel and see, like really see that
like
thing.
Finn. Like yes. Finn does.
I guess so. Yeah, it's like Finn. Oh my God. And there is something that I want so bad. Like there's a thing, like a big project and a trip, and it includes going to Hawaii with a film crew, and I want it so bad. And every time I really get still in my body and think about it and like kind of meditate on it, I can't see it. Like I can't, it's not a clear visual that I get. And I'm like, oh, maybe whether I want that to happen or not, maybe it's not going to happen. And I'm just like, so I just started trying on all the different stuff and seeing if that's a reliable way to tell, like yeses and nos for me, or get a sense of like alignment. And then I just had other ideas. Like it never occurred to me until today to schedule time for rest. Because I was thinking about like, well, I do this many hours here and this block of time. Like even after we finish recording the pod, I've got two kid hours, 2 units of child rearing, followed by more coaching when their dad picks them up. So I was like, oh, I could just schedule in rest. I could just schedule an hour a day where I don't have meetings in the middle. And for some reason that didn't occur to me until today. So just some stuff like that.
Yeah, I have a couple of things that are, well, the first thing I want to say just around the scheduling. So my word for the year is devotion. And right now I'm doing a 2-hour devotional morning practice.
Whoa.
And I'm scheduling that in, and I'm about to add like a midday meditation.
Wow.
And it's so radically important in a way that and it's a discipline, you know, it's like, and I'm shifting from, it's like I've see this transition in my life from an energy of disciplining myself to do things I should do, committing to things I want to do, and devoting myself to things that are the truth of who I am, and allow me to be the truth of who I am. And I think that even coaching you last night is, there's a theme that I'm seeing in people I work with, people I interact with, is the body that I believe the bodies are evolving, that we're going through like a major evolution. And ultimately, if, you know, I'm oversimplifying, but we evolved to like really, really use, you know, our frontal lobe more than we had in the past, right? But in a way that our brains have just become like completely maxed. Our left and right hemispheres are imbalanced. I see the visions I see is, and I'm not saying this is like in a year, I'm saying this is probably the next hundreds of years, that the journey that we're on is from that place to a place of being a heart-centered, body-centered species. And that when that happens, because the heart is like the channel for all of the energy in the quantum field, and then the body's the GPS for what that energy is saying, that we will experience our reality, even medicine, everything will be totally different because we'll be so aware of our own quantum field, our own energetic space. And so when I was coaching you and this idea of what's my true voice, what do I really want? What's my yes? What's the difference between the things I see and the things I don't? Like, what if it's that in the quantum field, there's like a truth and an authentic energy that flows through your body that's having a really hard time fully communicating with you because your body's like an antenna and everything in the antenna is not online. Just parts of the antenna are online. And then there's an additional piece around like how our mind can be socialized. Our brain can be like socialized and programmed around things. You know, this is a tree when you're a kid, like this is a bottle. You're being taught these things all the time. And so there's also some like deprogramming because the truth and the code of who we are doesn't come through that kind of a programming. It's coming from the quantum field.
So you're saying that me, like say taking a work project or an idea and not being able to see it clearly might be a result of programming, not a result of it not being aligned or not being what's meant for me?
I wouldn't even, that is like a very dualistic way to put it. What I mean is like, when it, like the old TVs, like when you move the antenna around, like you could see part of the picture and then it gets like fuzzy black and white, that like you're learning to tune your antenna and you're like shifting the conditions so that the antenna can better connect to the channels that you're specifically connected to. And you're discerning between what are my channels, what is my authentic voice, and then what are the programs that, the cable or whatever, which ones do I want to listen to? Like it's all a path. It's all connected to different timelines, I do wonder about this gift of discernment, right? And like this piece of what you're seeing. And if I compare that to me, the things that I see are my highest timeline, my highest and best timeline.
The things you see clearly.
Yeah. But most of the time, especially over the last 10 years, they felt wildly ridiculous and made no sense and did not match at all the current reality that I was having. So I could not even imagine how those things could not be a complete fantasy. And then kept bringing myself back to like, well, what's reality,
All my stuff feels pretty practical. Like, I think there's a word for this, but I see time visually. So like when I think of the calendar, I picture a circle with like almost like a slinky, and there's different areas for different seasons and stuff.
Why have you not told me this?
I don't know. I'm surprised I haven't.
I am so annoyed how you act like you are just like, why does everybody else have all these things and I don't have them? Like, okay, that ends today. We're putting that in the trash. You're seeing time as it truly is, which is nonlinear. That's exactly how time is, actually.
Yeah. So I wouldn't. Yeah. So and it moves. And when I think about something happening in the future, how I see it and how the image of how I see the time in my head moves, and I kind of focus in on it. So when I get down all the way to like a day or an event on a day in the future or in the past, it's like I can really see it all the way. And that is like pretty normal. Like it's kind of weird for me to not be able to see something, I guess is what I'm saying.
And that sounds very much like the Finn thing. Like, cause Finn's like, Finn's like, I'm going to Whole Foods today. Or like, I'm going to, he said, I saw a napkin case, and then he's at Whole Foods and he sees it. So he's like moving. And this is something I hope we continue to talk about more, because time travel is a conscious evolution. It's not a box that you physically go somewhere. And we're all waking up to the ways that we can time travel all the time. So the question I hear you asking though is like, when I don't see something,
what's that mean for me? Yeah.
What does that mean for me?
And a couple of things for the people in the back. Finn is my son, and we did a podcast episode when we're recording this that has yet to be released. I imagine when this episode comes out, it will be released.
Release before this.
Yeah. He's excited for it to come out. He was the guest on our podcast, and he gets channeled images that are like of the day every morning. And we talk about that and normalize it, actually. And a couple of the things you just said are funny because I've been saying to people in somatic experiencing sessions, especially like if there's some, what was Greg's word for it? Phenomena or material. If there's some material that happens in our lives, that there's a reaction in our bodies from trauma from the past. And it reminds us when we have the right conditions, like in a somatic experiencing session, to actually reprocess memories of like charges and trauma that's stored in the body. One of the things that I say to people is, well, bodies can time travel. So your body's in the past right now. trying to process a charge of what happened in a moment. It wants to complete and release. And we can support it to do that right now. And I've been saying that all the time lately. So the fact that you just said it in those words.
Well, the way I experience it is that the bodies are always expressing where the consciousness is in time. Mm-hmm. So it's like this GPS, and it can also, my experience of my body is it can anticipate future events too. So if I go into an intentional memory of my past or someone else's memory in the field with them, like our consciousness is traveling there, but our body is like the GPS. So it's like if you put a satellite on another planet and you were, bringing the information in, but then you could make a visual, or you could feel or smell, or, of everything that you're bringing in energetically. And so this idea of being present is finding like where in the timeline when you're in the now moment, right? Like in distinguishing between like in this moment, I'm actually in this reality, in this choice, versus I could be in the past, I could be in another dimension, I could be in the future in any given moment.
Well, I think when I started thinking about time not being linear, first it felt really scary. One of the most comforting things that has been happening for me lately and integrating lately is that when I relax into the idea that time isn't real and that our interdimensionality is keeping us with and connected outside of this dimension and this experience, I just fucking chill out. Right. Like if there's some person that I wish I was spending time with, I'm like, we're together though. It's not separate. Today is my dad's birthday. And I was, and my dad passed now like 14 years ago.
This is a Pisces?
Yeah. And my mom's birthday is in 2 days. They're both Pisces. And my mom's new boyfriend, his birthday was yesterday, and they're all born the same year.
Oh my God. And aren't your kids both Pisces, or they have
Parker's
a lot of Pisces?
Parker's a Pisces, sun and moon and stellium. Hold on one second. What's up, bud? Yeah. And then Finn I don't think he's got too many Pisces placements. I think he's got Pisces in the 10th house, maybe something like that. Pisces in some other placement in the 10th house. But when I was on my somatic experiencing for me, like me getting my therapy with my therapist, Kathy Latner, I love her. And we were having this lovely, very chill session where I imagine it's like what you say when you're doing field work, when you're in the field, but we were just kind of like on a different level. We weren't really talking. We were just kind of flowing and being with each other. And I was talking about my dad and how, like he always, whenever I do mushrooms, he comes to me and we talk. He like chit chat or will give me advice or whatever, but it's pretty reliable. Like most of the time he shows up, and I was like, yeah, like he's not gone. Like I used to really miss him all the time, but like, he's not gone, he's here. And I know like when we're little in church, people say that kind of thing. And I never knew what they were talking about, but I feel like I know about it now. And even just friends or like flames or just, whatever, even like when the kids are at their dad's house and not with me on their day, like his days with them, I don't notice feeling disconnected from them. Like I just feel like I can just feel them, and I just don't feel lonely or sad or as much attachment and longing either.
Yeah.
That's not all the time. That's how I'm feeling like a portion of the time, but it's way more online than it used to be.
I'm having that experience. Like, I've set some boundaries in the community that I've been a part of. And it's like people that I'm deeply committed to. And I literally, in my prayers in this devotion time in the morning, I speak around the people I'm devoted to. And, it's like, I'm really learning who my Metatron is. And, but just had to step away, or felt called to step away, I guess I would say. And there's just like this deep somatic trust. It's not like my mind is like, I trust this. It's like my nervous system is like, everything is not even just fine. Everything's amazing. And you are always connected to these people all the time. And you were connected. I'm starting to become aware, like, of memories where I'm like, I actually feel like they were energetically with me in times in my childhood. And, you know, the implications for that are really interesting, you know? And I've had some experiences with certain people. It doesn't seem like something I can just do with anyone, where like I had one experience where our friend Brad, like we were doing connecting in the field and I could feel his hands come up against my hands and I could sense kind of like his hair. And, you know, with him and I'll have, and they're not very predictable, but like this experience of this higher version, this light version, like visit me, hold me. Yeah. So
you got a wave.
The wave was, what does this mean for humanity? You know, like, what does that mean for bodies? And then that day I had that experience where basically I had this totally random experience I was not on medicine. It was beyond any medicine experience I ever had. And it was with Heyman and I hadn't even seen him. And we hadn't really been talking. And I went over there and energetically something just happened. And all of a sudden we were both kind of the same, but different. And we could talk through energetics. Like I wasn't having to use my mouth, but he was responding to me. Energy was just flowing between us. It felt like we were like rolling in a ball of bliss. And it felt like our masculine and feminine energies were becoming like androgynous and moving back and forth. And it lasted for about 3 hours. And I mean, it was like beyond magic. And I felt like it was, for some reason, life giving me this vision of like, this is what you remember. Like, this is the level of connection, the level of ecstasy that you remember. And that's why you have these like visions of possibilities, but it's also why you get so pissed or you feel so dissatisfied with these other experiences. Because if you remember that, everything else is going to feel like, you know, not a big deal, or it's going to be disappointing. And that the message was kind of like, this is the highest, this is like the, where humanity and brains are trying to evolve, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Bodies, I meant not brains.
Bodies, yeah. I have a friend who recently lost his mom to this timeline and dimension. And my good friend, who I really want to come on the podcast and talk about this, is sort of a psychopomp. You familiar with that term? Like a death doula, like someone who is a steward of the interdimensional space, specifically around transition. And now that same friend who just lost his mom, and my friend was sort of supporting his mom, being with her, visiting her, is what I say, is now doing this for his dad. Now it's only been 3 months, and now his dad seems to be in the process of transitioning too. And while it seems kind of scary, and I don't think he really buys like all the way or is really available. And it's not that he doesn't buy it, because I think he knows it's true, but like isn't maybe totally available to some of the stuff we're saying right now.
It's not a good time usually when you're like actually losing someone, to probably.
And I can see how comforting it could be to start opening yourself to believing that there's more than just these bodies in this life. And I'm being comforted. Like I'm sort of thinking all about my dad and just where I'm at on my process around that. Like I feel in a state of completion around grieving my dad. And I don't even think that's been true until the last couple of years. And so it's been kind of trippy to just keep reminding myself that my dad's not gone. He's just not here the same way that he was. And I can talk to him whenever I want to.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it on here. You know how my dad came to me when he was transitioning and like told me what was going to happen like 3 months ahead. And it's like, my dad had early onset Alzheimer's, so I hadn't really heard his voice or spoken to him in a couple of years. And the voice that came through was like, I was like, oh yeah, that's what he used to sound like. You know, it was like a very clear, very audible. I was in the shower, and like fell to my knees because it was so overwhelming. But right now, and I've done some work around him and was, you know, having dreams about him and feeling connected to him for a while. And I'm not feeling that the same way. And I'm curious about, so that's what I'm curious about of in terms of who and what we connect to.
I'm actually tripping out a little bit right now because I just put something together. So you know, people who listen to this might know that I had cancer. My dad had the same cancer. It's a genetic condition. It's a genetic thing called Lynch syndrome. And when he told me when he was probably in his mid 40s. He died when he was 52. And in his mid 40s, he told me that he was going to die when he was 52. And his story about that was that his dad.
You just remember it?
No, I've had a story about it. Like he told me that and he said, I just thought it was kind of a story that was fear-based because his dad died when his dad was 52 and he was 25 years old. And when my dad was 52 and died, I was 25 years old. Mm-hmm. And it's like he wanted to tell me something, like, it's like he wanted to prepare me. And also he worked all the fucking time. He was always gone and he was working really hard all the time. And he had this big push. He actually left like a really high salaried job to start his own company, which ended up putting us in pretty tough financial position at the beginning of that company, which a lot of my financial trauma. I feel
like you skipped over sadness. Did you? Did sadness come up?
I didn't notice it. Maybe a tinge of it. But yeah, there was a tough financial minute or two there that had a pretty big impact on me because I was just sort of at an impressionable age. But I was always like, when I got to be a teenager, I'm like, why do you work so much? And he ended up like starting this company and it worked out. He ended up selling the company and he got, some money for that he was able to divide between my mom, who was his ex-wife at the time, and the four of us kids, me and my three siblings. And so like, that's why I have a house, because my dad died and I was able to use that money and you get a down payment. And I don't have college debt because I was able to, use that money. So I always just thought, oh, he was just scared because his dad died when he was 52. So he thought he was going to die when he was 52. And then he managed to co-create that somehow out of fear. Like he had so much fear in his body that he ended up co-creating cancer and killing himself by working himself to death and getting sick and dying. And I kind of just have had that. And then I've just kind of, I don't know, in that moment, I just said, or my Pisces dad actually fucking knew. And he said, I want to take really good care of my kids in this lifetime. And I'm going to put my energy in this way so that they're okay, even though I'm not going to be here to provide for them for a long life. And that, like, my sister was 16 years old and he was like, well, this is what I'm deciding to do. And I never really thought about it in just a legit, true way that was more intuitive and interdimensional on his part rather than some story he had about being scared. Until now. And my dad, I'm pretty sure he has a lot of Scorpio placements and he's Pisces sun. I'm Scorpio rising. Parker's a Scorpio rising with all those Pisces placements. Like Finn has a lot of water too. I think it's
what feels true to me is that, like, even when you did the reading for Talon, right? Drew said, this is his inheritance from his mom. That's what he said in his chart. And it seems to me, in what I observe in the field, that like lessons kind of can get poured over to the next generation, or things get incompleted, or sometimes it's about seeing life on the other side of that eyeball. So like, in a way, your dad could not fully know his father unless he saw his child at 25 when he was 52 having a dying experience. Like there's these ways that create like justice and reciprocity in the universe, and they're coordinated before we get here. I definitely believe that our birth and our death are for sure, you know, out of our control. And I see the memory of when I die. There's a specific part of the memory, and it came up again yesterday, I think it was, and Talon isn't there. And I was like, every time I see this, Talon is not there. Where would Talon be? And I thought about how, so when my dad was dying, you know, we drove so fast to try to get there, you know, before, and he died 15 minutes before I got to the hospital. And I got really emotional and felt Talon and felt me. I felt me learning and realizing how my dad was feeling, knowing I was coming and knowing that he wasn't going to see me before he.
Yeah.
And I felt Talon and how he felt, like all in the memory, like, and the word memory has been really uncomfortable for me lately because I have almost more memories of the future than I do of the past in this life, in this timeline. And so when I say memory, like for me, it often means a memory of a future where I've been.
Well, I got like a wave of sadness that came through and some flow when you put it that way, because I've mostly thought about how fucked it is and how much injustice there is. That my dad had to go through that with his dad, and like then it happened again, and that I had to do it, but I never really thought about it like it's a way for my dad to know his dad and know himself. And I never really thought about it that way. But of course, I went through a whole period after my dad died. It was the beginning of some of my consciousness work, I guess, because I was terrified that I was going to die when I was 52 years old. I was like, fuck, this is going down. And I started doing some of what I do now, which was squeezing a whole fucking lot into a day. And I did EMDR. It's nervous system work. It's a little different than SE, but I did that for a year. I went every Sunday for 2 hours to my therapist's office for 1 year. And it helped me a lot. I was like functional, because the end of my dad's life was pretty traumatic. I was his primary care provider, and it got pretty bad. So I got to process a good bit of it. But I remember I used to have, you know, I should pull it back out right now, because I had these little, like, you would pick a statement and say like how true or not true it feels. So there'd be some fear-based statement, like what's a core fear, and then you'd pick a statement that's the opposite, and you would say like, does it feel true? How true does it feel? And you'd work towards it feeling more true through your EMDR therapy. And the state, I felt like I don't have any time. I was scared. I don't have any time was sort of what felt the most true to me then. Like my life's half over. And the statement I was moving towards was, I have plenty of time and I live my life with ease. And I had it on sticky notes in the car, and I had it on sticky notes in the bathroom. I like considered a tattoo. Like I told my friends about this, and I worked that statement for a year, and I did experience the big shifts around it. But, in the moment that I'm in right now, I can see how I'm doing the same exact fucking shit that I was doing then. So,
well, even when you're talking about your dad dying at 52, there was this part of me, and it didn't feel like mine, but it felt like a voice saying to you, that's 12 years from now. That would be, if you died at 52, you would have 12 more years. And like, if you just playing with that, just actually playing with that, if I had 12 more years,
how would I organize myself?
How would I organize myself right now?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel too different. Like, the reason that I work so much is because I love what I'm doing, and it feels very aligned to my purpose. And the one place that I have refused to let suffer is my kids. So like not working late on the days I have them, and when I have them on the weekend, like I'm fully here. Maybe I need to take a break every so often and go upstairs or take a bath or something, but I've been pretty intentional. It doesn't feel too different. Like if I knew I was going to die when I was 52.
But let me play with this statement and try to let go of all the what we just said about maybe death. We don't have a choice, just to play with it in consciousness, right?
Sure.
What if you knew that if you continue working as hard, your body as hard as it is, you would only have 12 more years. But if you were willing to slow down, you'd have 20 or 30 more years.
I'll explain it to you the way my brain works with time, because this is what I just saw. And this might be more clear for people watching on YouTube rather than listening on the pod, but it was like preponderance. Think of it as like Tetris blocks. And that it was just like they're all orange and it's like a column of Tetris blocks. And thinking about living longer, it was the same amount of Tetris blocks, but it was spread out over more time. And there was a lot of purple in between. And there was a thought, like, it doesn't matter. Like it was like, I'm going to do what I'm here to do. And if I slow it down, I will have more time to do that. It's kind of that was how it felt when I just thought about, and there's no words with any of that, but that's the visual that I had when you asked me that question.
Yeah, that says a lot. I mean, to me, that does suggest kind of and like my experience of like this thing of like, this is an eternal game and we come back and the more that we become conscious of the game. And what I mean by that is we start to time travel. We start to become conscious of who we are in this life, who we've been in other lives. Like I believe that I can consciously start to choose who I want to be in my next life, who I want to be with. What the lessons I might want to learn are, like that it's like, I think with the universe in general, like we don't get the full say, like this whole manifesting, you are the creator, blah, 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 blah. You're a co-creator, like life does respond to us. It does, listen to our feedback. Sometimes it has the attitude, okay, I'm going to let you learn that, I'm not going to intervene if you think you know so much. And things like that. But I don't believe that it's like we're telling life what to do. It's constantly coordinating the highest and best for everyone. And so to me, yeah, it's like if you are here and you have a map, it's like maybe you can draw the map out longer or shorter or even over multiple life maps.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking it's just one of these ways where we're doing the same stuff in our own little unique ways. But I've heard you say so many times, like, I am here. I want to learn the lessons in this life. Like, that you have some stuff that you're here to do and you're like, I want to learn it. And I
want to carry it over. Like I want to start clean with new ones. Like I don't want to like drag them out.
And you've been downright lusty about getting some of these lessons that don't feel that great. It's been tough. And something that's been shifting for you even just this last week. And I want to do I really want to go deep on the retreat you just went on, but and I don't know if we have time right now, but this week, Lauryn's been, making some of these
like we're transitioning shifts. To that right now.
We're both doing it. We both have our shit we're here to do. We're doing it in our own different ways. Mine is blocks of time that are technically work colored, and yours is like emotional labor that you have been moving through all of this different stuff and conflict in your life to learn things. But we're both been doing it in this really fucking intense way where it's all very truncated in these last few years. And both of us are tired. And we want to do it different. Maybe
what's coming up right now when you say that is like, okay, so I came in 1982 and this time we're about to come into, what's available, it's like a really special time to be a human in a body on an earth. Like there's a lot of, I don't know what the right word is, but conjunctions all at one time. Like you have you have hot water and like Uber Eats, you know, but you also are.
Finn roasted me a couple days ago. Did you read that? I put on Facebook because he's so funny, but we were talking about computers or online. We're talking about the internet. And he was like, "Do they even have the internet when you were born?" I was like, "No, not really. There was like one computer." He's like, "Yeah." And it was like the size of a room and it was at NASA. And I was like, yeah, like he was roasting me about what wasn't going on in 1982. And I'm like, actually, yeah. And actually it was amazing. It was amazing to have like an analog childhood.
Right. Plus, exactly.
And then we're
plus
here
you have
now.
that. Right. So the time, it's like, I have this sense that I picked so strategically the
transition time,
the year that I came in, because of what I would experience and how I would appreciate the contrast of this time. And then this kind of like golden age of mysticism and energy and all of this divine feminine rising time and what's available for like being in a body, but also aware of your light body. And so I'm saying all that to say that what just came through was like, I hit the ground like 1982, like, I got 40 years to fucking clean up, you know, get my body ready, get my consciousness clear, And that's what it's felt like. It's felt like I have literally been in a race and something is like, the race feels like it just ended. Like I crossed, even this tattoo, it feels like I crossed the finish line. And while he was like digging into my arm, because it's really my whole hand, and I was feeling the cuts and feeling the wounds, there was like this sacred feeling of like rituals where maybe people would have parts of themselves cut to remember and to honor everything that made them who they are.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like. It was like, these are sacred wounds. These are sacred cuts because they have made you fully who you are. And this, the retreat was all about, the message I got is like this transition from Lauryn with an E, which according to this numerologist reading that I got a year ago, my name spelled with an E and my name spelled with a Y. It's just a slightly different life path. And the life path with a Y, it's like she doesn't have to learn from suffering. Like that's how I would summarize it.
Amazing. Go with that.
This whole, but the other piece is like, I do honor like Lauryn with the E. Like what I see is when people don't have the contrast of suffering, it creates a lot of recklessness on the planet with other people. There's a way that I'm like, I don't think that there's a way that I do not want to forget what it felt like to have these different experiences and these heartbreaks and to feel so many different levels of pain, because it gives me like compassion and the ability to like see myself in so many people. So it was really, there was a warrior run that I did, and there were like obstacle courses. And one was like, I had to fight a dragon. It was like this giant UFC wrestler. And I just like walked right up to him and looked him in the eye. And then after each, and you had to do it with water in your mouth and you couldn't spit out the water. And I took that as like protecting my flow. And then you got like a blessing after each one. And then when I crossed the finish line, there was a guy on the mic and he was like, and I crossed by myself. He's like, "You're the only person to cross today with a hawk flying over her head." And if you know me, like when I went to my indigenous ancestors' land, I found a hawk feather, and hawks have been like this theme since that time. So it was just like, there's just this real kind of like culmination, integration. And then there was this breath work that was so intense. It was like 2 hours of breath work. It was like a journey. And I could feel the main message of the breath work was feeling all of what my body has endured. Like there was even a time where I felt like my vagina was crying out, like grieving. And then there was another point where I was just like holding my body and I'm like, "I'm so sorry. Like, I love you so much." And I think this is also a metaphor because I think our bodies channel earth consciousness, and that like we are expressions ultimately of like some of the earth's experiences. And so my awareness of the ways that I've polluted my body, the ways I've betrayed my body, are this like way that I can know the earth better and have more understanding of what it's like to have concrete poured, all over your pores, or, trash thrown into your oceans, or to just have parts of who you are just defiled without anyone ever thinking twice about you. So there's like this appreciation for those awarenesses, because I think it makes me more awake to the choices that I'm making now.
Mm-hmm. I said that every time I use mushrooms, my dad visits me. So I pretty reliably have this sort of interdimensional experience, oneness experience. On mushrooms, every single time I've ever used MDMA, it usually starts with this, but I always get flashes of like starving polar bears and like ice caps melting, or like it's all related to like climate change or sort of the suffering of the earth every single time.
What if those are memories?
I never considered that.
From a future or a different timeline or another experience that you've had. Like Jonathan, one of my best friends, hopefully he'll be on here soon, but he orients his life and talks about this like reality where he sees utter destruction and like people having to have their own plots of land and no food. And like and I sometimes feel like that we've had those experiences in some time and place, and we're bringing that awareness and that appreciation, because if you lived at a time where that happened, you're going to have a whole different awareness, right? If you come into a time before that has occurred.
Yeah. Yeah. And like how I got involved in agriculture, like, probably 13 years ago, is I had like a really horrible allergic reaction to a chemical, like literally just chemicals that were in a park got on me and near my face, and my eyes exploded and my throat closed and I almost died. And that put me on a path to learn about what are we doing with these chemicals. It was Roundup, just glyphosate, Roundup, ready grass. And that's what got me involved in understanding what our impacts are around agriculture and food and the soil and the earth. And
just to play with it, just for listeners, what if that's what reminded me of what I already knew? Yes.
Yeah. It was like, hey, it's like, psst.
It's like, that's the whole game.
It's no different. Like we're doing it to ourselves as we do it to the earth.
Right. It's the hide and seek thing. It's like, I already have this awareness. I already know this at some point in time, and I love to become aware of it. Mm-hmm. Again.
Peekaboo, as Diana says.
Peekaboo. Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess we figured it out. Figured out consciousness, guys. Figured out purpose and life and time and suffering. We've really figured out a lot of stuff here today on this pod. 51 minutes in, and it's solid. It's not too much more to figure out.
It's been a quantum podcast.
That's how we do it.
Something else about the retreat was this idea of like how my body, and I think probably this is a lot of us, its greatest attunement is to fear and suffering. That was the experience I had in my upbringing. Like as my body was learning to align to the frequencies, that's the frequency it knows best. So I keep, attracting, attuning, noticing those frequencies. And there was this moment, there was a concert by Gone Gone Beyond, which is, if you don't know them, look them up. I'm obsessed. 125 of us with this amazing band. And I just felt all this bliss, and my higher self was like, almost like an oversoul around my body, watching me, saying to me, do you feel me seeing you? And I'm feeling what bliss feels like. And I'm like, and the message was like, attune to this feeling. Know this feeling in yourselves.
Yeah.
expand. But what's weird and not weird, and the way that it's time is not linear, because last summer I had an experience all of a sudden out of nowhere. I just felt complete bliss in my body. And then I was like, oh my
At
God,
that hotel?
I was like, how do I get back to this?
Yeah.
And then I was like, this is coming. And like, I didn't feel it again for 9 months. And I think that's the way we're like moving back and forth through time, right? Sometimes, but I can see how all of kind of the destruction and healing of my nervous system has been this like 2 steps forward, 1 step back process. But it feels like my nervous system is like settling, and it's like, okay, we found the set point of trust. We're going to hold the set point of trust. Like, it doesn't feel as temporary or as like I have to do a million things to like hold it.
And are you open to losing the set point or having to do things? Like, sometimes I know, like, I do this, like I'll get to a place and I'm like, oh, now I know about this thing. Now I'm okay. But like, even I used to have like a pretty strong dissociative pattern, which you were one of the first people to call me out on, like, hey, where'd you go? I was just talking about something and you were gone. And I was like, really worked on it. That's what I did. A lot of my SE work on was really like melting a bunch of like freeze and fear stuff in my body. And I don't really do that much anymore. But this week, two times, once coaching with you last night, and also I did a voice and speech coaching session with Paul, the embodiment coach. And I was dissociating my ass off. I was like totally blank. And I was like,
right.
And like, will it be okay too if it's not a new set point, and if things, Well,
I think the first thing is like, I want to say that I don't feel heard or felt. I felt like you skipped over the experience that I'm having and didn't believe me. It is a new set point. Okay. And I will sometimes not feel this way, but it is my new set point. And I know that to be true. And it's important for me to know that, and for me to be seen in that, in this moment. But what I hear you saying, and what I think is the wisdom of what you're saying, is there will be times where I will forget that is my set point, or I'll get thrown off from that place, and I will need help to get back right to that set point. But I don't think I will ever go back to any of the set points. Not like my previous set points.
From this life, you mean?
Like, my nervous system is different. And I think that's also important, because I really believe that part of me is like, I don't actually think it's like, I just think we're all evolving in that way. And life's like, you can like do all these fun things like SE and breath work and think that you're making it happen. That actually came up in the breath work. It was like, this was going to happen. I literally had the thought, like, today you were going to shift like this no matter what happened. It was already in, the astrology is already part of the plan. But isn't this a cool way to do it? To like do breath work and to have this big like release, And I think we're all evolving. I think our nervous systems are changing. And I think some of us are going to be changing them to a place of trust.
Yeah. Well, hearing how that landed on you, I felt like heat rise in my face. I noticed some anger, and it's like, what I want to be known for is that I want to care for you, and I want all different types of experience to be okay, and I want capacity for you. And so I think, you can move to a new set point, and like in nervous system work, a new set point just means that it takes more, but it doesn't mean you're never like having a nervous system that's like steady. You wouldn't even want that.
What is this bringing up for you? What is this? If it wasn't about me, if it was about Bethany, if you checked in, is the emotion pointing to something else?
Well, I want to have range too. I want to be able to have capacity for all different types of things too. I don't want to make being more I don't know, conscious. I don't like, I suffer when I make things like good and bad and better and worse. And I get really like attached to that.
And how do you hear me making something better or worse?
Like I have a better nervous system now. I have a new set point. I'm not gonna, that's not happening anymore. It's here now. And I've heard it several times over time. And I do think you are establishing new set points. I think you're totally growing and changing and healing over time. And I notice wanting room, you know, so that it doesn't feel like some kind of failure if something feels different or changes or gets hard again. If there's some new wave of big challenge where you're feeling lost, like I thought it was this and it's not this, and I don't trust life, which I just think we should expect that.
Right. But for me, where I am right now is about like, I just know what's true in my body. And I also don't think if I get away from it, it will be a failure. And what I'm standing for is my pattern is like when you say things or other people say things to me that challenge what I know to be true, I'm like, oh, let me consider that. And there is time to do that, but there's also like, I actually really know.
Yeah.
Like, I really know that something is different. Something is really different. And
I know it is because of the stuff you did this week.
It's just, but it's been coming for like a couple years, and I've seen it for like glimpses, but there's just this like settling that's happening. And I'm like, this is where I've been coming to. And not that there won't be more hard things. There won't be other things, but I know this isn't temporary. And I know that something is different, and I'm willing to be wrong about that. If that is the case, I'm willing to take responsibility if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm going to feel like a failure. And it feels like you're trying to protect me from some future experience or some past experience that you've had where you felt like you couldn't help me or I wasn't feeling good about myself. And you're trying to like protect me from that ahead of time.
Yeah. My protector's up for sure. Do you have a call right now?
Oh yeah. Well, let's it can be a couple of minutes late. I'm curious what's here now to like close the container.
Well, it's not really a problem for either one of us to like, you know, have whatever's happening in our consciousness and our body happen, even if they don't match and and it's not tied up in a little bulb, you know? And I mean, either way, we're here and committed and we're going to do it together and we're going to support each other. And so, yeah.
Well, I think what's coming up too is, like when I set these boundaries with my community or whatever, I was 100% clear. Like it wasn't from below the line. It was clean for me. And people are like, you're projecting, you're running away, you're da-da-da, you're da-da-da. And there's just something for me right now about like what I'm repeating some patterns in some relationships. And I'm like looking back and like when they told me that before, I felt so much shame. And I'm like, they're right, but I just can't control it because my body is like literally telling me not to come, like I had a panic attack, like I had to follow my body. I couldn't override it. And I'm like, no, what if like my guidance is actually, it goes back to like this thing of like what Diana was pointing to, like, am I willing to trust myself if I lose everyone else?
Yeah. If no one else,
believes me. And that's the game I'm playing right now. And like, what if I fully trusted myself over other people's experience of me?
Yeah.
And I just, there's something about that for me. And, I played the game of how is it true? I've played the game of those things and gone really far in that direction. And right now my game is like trusting this knowing in myself and then like seeing, and there's something also for like standing for myself and saying, this is what's true for me.
Great. Yeah. And when you said it, you felt very like, it wasn't like stone, but it felt very strong and steady. And like you were kind of squared off in your body and stuff, and the way you looked at me. And I'm like, okay. And I'm happy that you'll always reveal to me and tell me if you're not feeling seen and not feeling supported by what I'm saying.
And setting boundaries too. Like there is like, I'm like boundaries are like the antithesis of who I am. And I'm like,
you're Pisces rising.
Right. But something's coming online and it's just like, and it just feels like it makes so much sense. And I just don't know where it's coming from. Yeah. But as soon as I cut those boundaries, my whole nervous system was safe.
Yeah.
You see, it was like, we trust you to protect us. And all the was like, it like, whoosh.
Yeah.
And I feel amazing. And I feel guilty for being amazing because some people are mad at me. But
I thought you were going to say war in Ukraine. That's the one I keep upper limiting myself with. Well, I remember times in the past when you didn't feel seen by me, you didn't feel understood. And it resulted in like, screaming crazy triangle for 5 minutes or whatever. And so what I saw in you was boom, anger, boundary. I'm going to express, I'm going to tell you what's here. And, great. Nice job, Aries moon.
I don't know. We'll see what the fuck's happening. And everyone's going to get to witness it.
The title of this one will be like, Lauryn and Bethany solve all the world's issues. And I would be like,
like time is not linear or something like that.
Time is not linear and plus cat fight.
I don't think that's what it was. I think it's like modeling healthy intimacy.
Yeah. Like, yeah. What do you always say? Which I actually repeated something very similar on, we have a new coaches year training starting, and there was like an intro session or question day. And you were like, I took some of your words, but basically if you are relational with someone, there will be conflict. Count on it.
Actually, and it means that your resonance is shifting because you had a vibrational frequency, that signature that the two of you created, but one person shifted or both people are shifting. And it's like, you're trying to find
reacclimate. Yeah. New frequency. That's what you said in the Reese episode, new frequency. And I was like, yeah, if you're relational, there will be heat. There will be reactivity. Count on it. Expect it. Look forward to it. Thanks for listening. We welcome your feedback. You can email us at healingcollectivepod@gmail.com. Our website is thehealingcollectivepodcast.com, at Healing Podcast on Twitter, at Healing Collective Podcast on Instagram. Special thanks to Ethan Luck, who produces. You can find him at Ethan Luck on all platforms.